United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First off, I'm looking for approval of the minutes from last meeting. I'll second the motion. First and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the first resolution. This is fixing a time and place for public hearing relative to the proposed county of Oswego local law number 4 here, 2022 regarding income qualifications for partial tax exemptions on certain real property owned by eligible persons 65 age or older. I would make a motion to discuss this. Second. First and second, open for discussion.
So the state changed the language for how income is calculated for this exemption, and our local law uses the out-of-date language. So now it's using adjusted gross income with some modifications to it, which is what that law breaks down in the bullet points. Adds back in Social Security, adds back in certain other things that were adjusted to AGI. That's really all it's changing.
So, do you or Kevin suspect the impact on tax revenues?
No. It should calculate out about the same. It's not going to give a greater or lesser benefit. It's just updating language, really.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. So this is being set for the 9th of November?
It'll be 30 days from the 12th, or at least 30 days for the next meeting, so.
Next up, we have a resolution authorizing transfer of additional funds of $412,277 to the fund balance, A1 5900 to the assigned council office legal fees of A1170, object 5433. Sarah?
Sure. So we track the expenses and legal fees of the department every year to make sure that we're going to be able to, make the payroll for the attorneys. And when I was running it, I'm realizing we're not going to make it. We have a shortfall. The shortfall is projected based on, excuse me, the average bi-weekly payment that goes out. I will say there's huge variance in that payment. One week we can be paying $58,000 in legal fees. The next week we can be paying $130,000. So this is my guess based on the data as good as I can do. I will say that the last pay period was actually $110,000 versus $80,000. So my balance right now is actually at $294,223.77. If that trend continues, we're going to be back. We're not going to make it through the release of the 2024 funds for $412. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying it may happen. Part of the increase, as everyone knows, the state increased the rate for legal fees starting April 1st to $158 for every case, regardless of whether it's a felony, a misdemeanor, or family court. Before April 1st of 2023, felonies paid at $75 an hour, family court paid at $75 an hour, and misdemeanors paid at $60. So now we have misdemeanors paying at, the misdemeanors and violations paying at $158. The state is only giving us back 1/2 of the increased rate. So for felonies and family court, they're giving us $41.50 per hour. For misdemeanors, they're giving us $49 per hour. My projection on how much is going to come back from the state is really based on limited data. I know it sounds like April 1st was 6 months ago, we should have lots of data, but the way the case is voucher is an attorney under the plan approved by the legislature gives attorneys 120 days from disposition of the case to voucher a case. So we are still starting to get cases that show the increased rate. Some of the vouchers that will come in have services that predate April 1st, which means it paid at the old rate and there's no state funds for it. Some of them have services post April 1st. So it's, in some ways, to be honest, I'm throwing a dart at a dartboard and seeing where it's landing, but I'm basing it on the data I have to date. So we're asking for the funds to be moved over so that we don't run into a shortfall, which starting in November, if we don't move this money, we aren't going to be able to make payroll. And we're projecting at least 50,000 of these extra funds will be reimbursed by the state for the increased rate. We do have a PD in place now. They did start taking cases July 3rd. I don't really know their numbers on how much they've ramped up and how many cases they have, but I have not seen an impact on the assigned council budget from that.
Your typical caseload, would you say, is it typical this year for the number of cases? Or do you see an
we have more
increase?
felonies this year than we have traditionally. Minnesota County has 9 homicides this year. We've never had 9 homicides. But yes, the data is, as far as number of cases, is comparable to other years.
It is.
Yeah. For example, just in criminal courts since July 3rd, the assigned counsel office alone, this is not counting anything that went to the PD, we've had 1,457 assignments on criminal cases since July 3rd through September 29th. So we have a lot of, and that's not family court, it doesn't include family court. So.
And didn't the income level change this last year for who's eligible for public defender?
It changed 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah, and it really made it so that 95% of the cases were eligible.
Yeah.
It's very, very infrequent that we have someone come through who's ineligible for.
And that came down from the state, correct?
Correct. To be honest, we didn't have a lot of people that weren't eligible prior to the change, but we certainly have fewer now that are ineligible.
Yeah, so now we're paying for a lot more tests for people that probably could afford their own. If they,
Yeah, it can be pretty egregious. You can't count on liquid assets. So someone had it where someone owns a $600,000 home, and because it's not readily convertible to cash, they're eligible for assigned counsel.
wow.
Yeah, it can be hard to swallow sometimes.
Thank you. Yes.
What controls the window for billing, for an attorney to bill it out? Is that us, or is it controlled by the state?
You mean what's their deadline to get
Yeah.
a voucher in?
Yeah.
That's from the Oswego County Assigned Counsel Plan that was approved by the Bar Association and the Legislature in, I believe it was March of, it was either 19 or 20, without looking at mine. It used to be 60 days. When I took over the office in 2016, I had vouchers that people were submitting that were 7 years old, and there was no enforcement of that. So it was a big process to try to get things buttoned down a little bit more. So a compromise was that we're going to give you 120 days, but it's a line in the sand. If you are 121 days, you don't get to voucher. So it's.
Will that have to come back to us if they want, if they push it to get their, if they're past 120 days? Or?
So we have a voucher review committee that does have discretion, but we don't allow vouchers to be submitted late for office failure, which frankly is the biggest scenario that we see. Sometimes we've had an attorney that's been out on severe illness for months, and then the voucher committee does allow them to submit those vouchers late, but that's not frequent.
And it's not just the attorney billing, it has to be approved by the court before the county can pay. So the judge signs off on it too.
Correct, but they don't, there's no if the attorney gets it into us by 120 days, it will go to the judge. Very, very, very infrequently does a judge alter a voucher, much less deny a voucher.
So Frank, you've got jurisdiction over me, buddy. I have several questions. First one, go back to the question about the income. What did you say? Did you see how much of a increase it was of people taking the assigned counsel with the change in the income? Did you see a larger increase?
So when you say change in the income, you mean change in the rate where they're getting paid
No,
more?
talking about the
When they're
rate,
eligible.
it says the eligible for assigned counsel.
So did we see assignments go up?
Yes.
Not particularly, because almost everybody was eligible even before the change.
Right,
So-
so it really was mute. Them
And it
changing
wasn't
it.
moot, but it wasn't as impactful as you might
Would think it would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could run, I don't even know if we could technically run the data based on the change in eligibility, but our caseloads remain pretty solid.
Second one, somebody refresh my, I don't know if we had a plan because we put in the PD, to eliminate the assigned counsel, or is there no?
No, you're always gonna need some assigned counsel for conflicts. You know, once the PD is fully staffed and taking a boatload of cases, you still need assigned counsel, and also they'll still be doing family court.
That's it.
I was just curious if it was a pure coincidence that you mentioned April Fool's Day and get money back from the state in the same sentence.
Well, I will say this, when I first took this job, I had conversations with people of influence in the county who told me that the state can play funny with the money, and I've learned some of their tricks. So, I am at least certain that reimbursement from the state is not going to disappear for the next year. What they'll do, I have no idea. If they can find a way out of giving the county money, I'm worried that they find a way out. And sometimes I don't even think it's legal, but it's what they do. We don't have to go into detail for that.
No. I think that most people in this room probably would agree.
How are we doing with our numbers? You said there was a shortage of attorneys catching the cases. Are we holding our own, or we need to?
We're desperate. It's going absolutely the wrong way.
So, let me ask you.
Yeah.
There's a rule in place, I believe, that only Oswego County attorneys can take these cases. Can we open it up? There's not a rule.
There's
So
not.
attorneys
It
outside-
can be contiguous counties as well.
Okay.
The problem is, I just got off the phone with Kathy Doherty, who's my contemporary in Onondaga County, and she's having the same problem there. They have, in Onondaga County, she told me they have 5 attorneys that will take felonies right now in Onondaga County. We have more than that in Oswego County, thank God, but we're still, it's very, very challenging. And there's no incentive to get somebody to come here because everybody has the same rate everywhere they go at this point. So there is not a requirement. There used to be until we amended the plan back in 19 or 20, I can't remember which. It used to have to be Oswego County, but now you can be an attorney that has office in a contiguous county as well. It didn't bring us anybody.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Not everybody's getting the same rate, right?
Yeah. Even back then, it cost maybe a couple, but
I was curious, is there a schedule or any control on how many hours somebody can bill for a certain service?
yes, so we have, within our TCANA system, which is our online vouchering system, we did put controls in place. Partly because, again, when I took this job back in 2016, even on a paper audit, I was finding some attorneys were billing 14, 16 hours a day in court alone. So we started to put these processes in place, and there's lockouts. If they bill, X amount for this service, they have to explain why. If they bill more than 12 hours per day total, they have to explain why. So there are some.
I'm looking for a first, second.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the reclassification of one position in the public defender's office.
I'll make a motion to open this up for discussion.
Second?
Have a first and second. Discussion on that, please.
Is there anybody here that's proposing this? You are?
I got questions.
Oh.
Any questions?
Right.
Okay. Is somebody to explain it from the public defender's office here?
I am, but I'm not sure that I have an explanation for that. I'm the investigator for the public defender's office. I'm here in Lewisstead, but I'm not sure I have an explanation for that.
I can explain it to some degree. Okay. So you had a person who applied for the #1 spot, but that requires residency. He wanted to offer the #1 spot, and the guy would accept the senior position so long as he didn't have to move here. So that doesn't require residency. So we're trying to create a position of senior so we can hire this guy and put him in. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's eliminating assistant, replacing it with a senior so that he can,
Skirt around the requirements.
no, so that, because seniors paid more, the person's willing to come for that.
So the #1 spot would actually pay more, but you don't require residency.
Two other questions. Now, nobody else had any questions on this, on the committee? Okay, all right, that eliminates the restrictions. Are there any restrictions on public defender's office, people still working in jobs in other counties, doing private sector work in other counties? Are there any restrictions that we have on that in our, public defender's office?
The county has at least when I was hired, had a moonlighting policy in place where if somebody wants to take work outside of their normal county hours, it's allowed, but needs to be, they need to report to the department head. Department head is supposed to make sure there's no conflict. If there's no conflicts, and they're not using county resources for the other job, and not using county time for the other job, it's got to be completely separate, then it's okay. In terms of whether PDs or ADs can, I think we're still researching that. There's a variety of opinions out there.
I have a couple of questions. Now, I know that this stuff.
Can I answer that for you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I forwarded a Board of Ethics ruling from the state to you about that, where it does, the PDs, the public defender is a little different beast than the attorney, the district attorney's office. They're like private attorneys, but they work for the county. So they're not representing the county, they're representing a client. So the state has allowed them to take cases in addition to the public defender's office, as long as there's no conflict, and specifically states that conflict can't be allowed. So they're allowed to continue to practice law, as long as it's not what they're working.
That explains it, and that includes everything else.
Yeah, it's a different beast than, they're not a officer.
The other two questions I have is, I know that right now this is all funded through the state, correct? Public defender. Do we anticipate when the state's gonna say, well, you know what, you've got it now? I mean, because that's, everybody in this room knows that the state gives you a little bit, just like a drug dealer. They give you the drugs for so long, then all of a sudden they'll say, you know what, now you gotta pay for them.
I agree with you 100%. They've done that many times before. I'm a little more comfortable with this one because it's part of the court settlement. We're all hearing court settlement that they have to fund this.
Courts can change.
Well,
The other question I have is, can I get a list of what the management is of the public defender's office? In other words, you got public defenders and how many people there are. Can I get that?
yeah, and it's right. Well, you made a few changes, so your next budget that you will see will have that. So I can update that and get that to you.
Because I know that this position is to be for supervising, to help supervising, and I just need to know how many people there are in that department and what the chain of command is. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
So it's not clear, is there a residency requirement with this?
Not for the senior,
Pardon?
not for a senior PD. There is for the first assistant.
No, there is for senior PD. They have to reside in contiguous counties.
Contiguous, okay, yeah, contiguous, but not Oswego. I think that was the question.
Any other discussion on that?
Well, I think there should be residency. It's a senior person who needs to be available at a moment's notice.
Well, legislature passed a local law to expand the residency requirements a few months ago. The first assistant and the public defender must be county residents. The other attorneys, assistant public defenders, may be from adjoining or contiguous
So the
counties.
assistant, there is a residency on the assistant.
Yeah.
And that's currently how it's
Contiguous
set up today, right?
First assistant.
First assistant
We're
must
trying to
reside.
change this to not have an assistant, but have a senior.
No, we're not changing.
The public defender
In a different
and
spot.
his first assistant must be residents. People below them can be contiguous counties.
Yeah,
There's an assistant PD and senior PD.
The DA's office, the DA obviously has to be a county resident. Chief assistant must reside in the county, but assistant district attorneys can reside in contiguous counties. So it's very similar to that.
And to be honest, if we didn't allow it with contiguous counties for these positions, it would be very, very, very difficult to fill them. We don't have a lot of attorneys in Oswego County. We certainly don't have many that are young and starting out. Most of the attorneys we have are well established in their practices. They're not going to be enticed by a position like this. And I believe that might have been the motivation behind the amendment. Am I correct, Rich?
Recruitment.
Okay.
One last question. Are they getting paid mileage? Does anyone know?
You can't get mileage to go from your residence to your place of work.
Okay, thank you.
If they have to travel within Oswego County,
Mhm.
then yes,
Sure.
but not. That becomes taxable.
Just one other little question. Will we be eliminating the first assistant? Or is that position still gonna be there? And you got a senior that's supposed to be doing the job of what the first assistant was going to do? Are we gonna eliminate? the
He's
first
not
assistant?
eliminating the first assistant, he's still looking for one. What he's eliminating is an assistant PD, replacing him with a senior.
So how many seniors does this position that creates a PD? How many seniors will they have?
I think there's only two.
So there's one existing and this will be the second?
I believe so, yeah. Well, I have them right in front of me.
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's correct? Yes.
Any other discussion on that? Well, here's why he may not be here to explain this to us. I'm concerned that he's not here to explain it.
He's excused, I'll explain it to you later. Not public though.
Pardon?
I said he's excused, but I will explain it to you later. It's not for public consumption.
Why he doesn't come to our meetings?
Today, saying that, today. He's excused today.
This makes me more curious. Go ahead.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Anybody opposed?
I am.
All right.
Nice try, Frank.
I tried to get that vote in there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let everybody know we're moving forward in the Record Center with our software records management program. Talking to Lisa Fish, working with IT, getting it all situated. So still on course to hopefully kick that off January 1, but there's a little bit of time putting it all together, putting all the pieces and building the software complete. So moving forward to that, that'll be really good. One thing I did just read in the paper was that, and it's no surprise, no secret, that our local municipalities need space for archival material and things of that nature, and that was one thing that we were looking at putting this forward. So that's a discussion that we're having with historians. We do have a new historian, Deb Allen, that, as you know, you appointed. She's doing a bang-up job, really kicking it off. We've hosted our first historians meeting, if you will, last Saturday at the Record Center. A lot of people, a lot of the historians have changed since the last time they walked through there, and they were very shocked to find all the resources that we have to offer to them. So I was happy to see that they're utilizing the Record Center now how it was intended to be utilized. And more to come on that, because we're just beginning to embark on the programming for that location. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up anything about pistol permits. As you know, we had a changeover. The NICS background checks are now being ran by state police. State police are doing everything they can, according to what's been dropped down on them from the second floor in the legislature. One problem we're seeing is when they're running the background checks, we have to run them at the sheriff's department as well for our 5-year Brady backgrounds. They're running into a little bit of a delay. It used to be instantaneously we would have a result of that background check. Now it's to be continued, and we're waiting for those. So working with the judges to figure out just exactly how we're going to do the background, lay it aside. You already have another background that's done at the gun shop for that firearm. Basically adding the firearm and then going back later and matching up the paperwork. So it is making a little bit more work for us. We're still doing the background checks. They're still doing the background check at the gun shop on top of this background check. So if you're outdated, your Brady expired, let's say last month, with a 5-year background, you go to the gun shop, you purchase a firearm, they do your background there, they're good to go, they give you a bill of sale, you bring it into us to add it, and we pause it, because we're like, oh, hold on, your Brady isn't up to date. The judges have given us a little grace period where we're adding the firearm on, because we've already had one background done, and then we're going to bring this background matched up afterwards. Not sure if we're going to proceed with that way permanently. We would hope to go back to the other way of doing it, back to what we were doing, but right now the state system is atrocious. It is not built to 2023 standards, and it is hindering Second Amendment in my eyes. So we're trying to do what we can to keep the law-abiding citizens from becoming criminals, but it's becoming a chore increasingly more of a chore every day. So that's about it with that. We are also, we've talked to Phil, and the other clerks we're working towards our retention for motor vehicle. Remember, we're going from 12.75 to 10.75. The 12.75 had a cap with online transactions, a threshold that we had to meet before we started bringing in that. 10.75 is going to be across the board in all transactions, both online and in person. So we are preparing for that. We're hoping that we can continue to see the same income mechanisms that we have from the state in the past, but to be determined whether we're going to come up with a new process or not. We're trying to figure that out right now with the Commissioner's Office. Other than that, if there's any questions here, or you know where to find me.
Do you have room for municipal storage for the towns and villages?
Once we start this project, that's our hope that we will.
Can we turn that into a good service project?
I know Cuba County is embarking on the same project. Actually, they're a year ahead of us on this project. And they've actually invested $2.5 million of their output into that project. They are looking at shared service funding for theirs as well. So I guess again, we know this.
Any other questions for Terry? Okay, thank you, Terry. Next up, we have Strategic Initiative Department updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're just kicking off our third quarter reporting period. Just haven't gotten any reports back yet, but we have been working with the county attorney's office. We've got almost everybody under contract. We've got a few that we need to finalize, and several that are out waiting for people to come back with their required information. There's like 9 pages in there that require signatures or initials someplace, and it's very common that we'll get back 4 or 6 or, you know,
It's true.
it's like pulling teeth to get people to sign every page. So it's protracted, it's a protracted application process once we get to the contract.
Have you determined any timelines for deadlines? Because as we know, we have to have that money allocated. People end up not filling out their contracts, then that money would, I would think, become available.
Yeah, so our plan was to wait till the end of 2023. We get the year-end reports in, see where everybody is, and then come back to you with some kind of picture about what it looks like. If we anticipate people having trouble, like we were notified on our third quarter report for one applicant that they had expected to be done by now, but they were relying on somebody else to help them get National Grid to move some poles so they could do the project, and apparently that third party failed at getting grid to the table, and so they said in their report it's going to be next year. But it's those that we'll have to keep an eye on and make sure that they're going to be able to get it all started. So if we think we're going to have trouble, and we may have to recall some, that'll be up to you guys. And if we believe that there's remaining funds and what you want to do with those, we'll bring that to you at the beginning of next year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dan. Next up, we have real property department.
Okay. So we just finished up the school tax rolls last month. That was in the Oswego City School District. So now we'll be looking forward to county taxes in December. I also attended the planning meeting last month, which was nice. I got to hear some different opinions of what they're doing upstairs here, or one floor down. I've taken the torch on trying to acquire updated aerial imagery for the county, and I heard some of their requirements, like trying to get some elevation data and to do things like shoreline mapping and things like that. So if you can think of anybody else that has requirements for aerial imagery, I'd like to try and get that into an RFP so we can get a capital project proposal out to you. Hopefully with this budget cycle, if I can. But that's really all I knew.
When does the state do their next flyover?
They did one this year.
Okay, so you want to acquire that?
The imagery isn't out yet. I'm hoping. I feel like last time they did it, it was out in October. So I'm hoping this month that that'll be out. But they just do kind of lower resolution, top-down imagery only. They don't do anything else like the side views or elevation data. But that should be available for up to date.
Any other questions?
Aren't we paying a lot of money for this imagery?
It is expensive, yes.
Because, well, the reason I ask is recently I've been checking Fulton on real properties in Fulton, and there's got to be, I'd say a dozen or more that don't have any pictures at all.
Are you talking about
He's talking about the subject.
the subject picture? Yeah.
Yeah, where you go to Google and the other ones.
Yeah, we don't.
There's no pictures there.
We don't pay for them though. Those images are taken by the assessors, so the city assessor would need to take those photos. You're talking about the one from the street, right, of the front of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one shows before and after, and then there's, the ones that are either, the Google Maps, and then there's the pin, stuff like that. So which ones are the ones that we take?
The ones that we take are used kind of more internally. They're used in the departments and shared with municipalities for like things like code enforcement and their purposes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. It's the 3D imaging is very beneficial. We had access to a trial period a couple years ago, and we were able to work with the various police departments and first responders and created the school buildings, we put them all in 3D so they could see where the entrances were and how they would need to flow through the building, so.
I just need to know who to ask about why I'm not, able to look at the pictures of the houses and see what they look like.
The assessor.
The local
All the local assessor.
And that's just a hole in the data collection.
And the pictures may not tell you much anyway, as some of them are old. The picture of my house is 2 paint jobs ago. It shows you what, what you're working on. Yeah. It looks a lot better than it does now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Board of Elections.
See you later.
Next up, we have the Public Defender Department.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
You from the Public Defender's Office.
I have
a report for us.
you. No, sir, I was here specifically for the change in position title. Yeah. It's hard.
Maybe you can introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mark Tekmansky. I'm the investigator with the Public Defender's Office. I'm here on Lou's behalf today, specifically about what y'all already voted on. Some of which exists above my head.
Mr. Chairman, I'd request an executive session regarding proposed or pending litigation concerning Western Regional Off-Track Betting Corporation.
Yeah, forward. Break. No voting for you, break.
Do we have somebody who wants to address this before we go into executive session? And then we make that motion.
All right, second executive session.
UAW rally.
What speakers?
Motion to adjourn, second.
Thank you. Okay, are we off?
Nice.